I'm really glad to see you all here. I'm in some way a host. I'm very proud to be here at the School of Medicine in Split, at the University of Split. We are proud because, according to the Times Higher Education ranking list, the University of Split is highest ranked among the three universities from Croatia that entered the list. So definitely this is the place for innovation and for research. So I'm going first to present the participants in this panel, and you already know René. You heard about his exciting medical device, who is a professor of orthopedic surgery at the University Medical Center of Utrecht in the Netherlands. Then we have Inés Urbano, who comes from Portugal, from the Pedro Nunes Institute, and she's a consultant for medical devices regulatory affairs. And then we have our colleague Arsen Ivanišević, who is orthopedic surgeon here at the Split University Hospital, and also the CEO of Xiphoid Medical Device Development Company. Why we talk about medical devices? I think that's because the regulation of medical devices is a little bit different than for drugs. For drugs, it's very clear you have to do clinical trials, different phases, then you submit your application and then you go into market, whereas innovation in medical devices go the other way. You don't do clinical trials, you first innovate, you have maybe a case report, a case series, and then randomized controlled trials, which are a gold standard for drug innovation, come much later in the discovery cycle. So we're going to talk about how to navigate the development journey for medical devices. And we all know that we have heard these amazing innovations and lots of medical knowledge that is there. But you often struggle with how to commercialize these devices. So the opening question for you is, what are the biggest hurdles when you move from the idea to development and then commercialization or putting it on the market? So, whoever wants to start first. Okay.
So, I think seeing the big picture is definitely the hardest. As a clinician, we are not exposed to any economics, any basically technological development of any products of such kind, and of course regulatory and funding, VC funding, all of these things. You need to have a little bit of knowledge in each of these fields in the end to know what you want to achieve in the end. And I think trying to learn that would be very beneficial, and I think that's the biggest obstacle of seeing everything before you have to go through that process for the first time.
Yeah. Inés?
Yes, I see a lot of companies that come to us and say, okay, I have this device that it's almost design ready, and now it seems I have to do some kind of paperwork. What is it? And then we start talking about technical documentation and regulations, and they are surprised because typically companies don't consider these requirements early. And this is something that can be very costly, because if you, in your early design stages, if you consider your regulatory requirements, if you do a good work at studying the standards you're going to have to comply with and all the obstacles you're going to face in the future, you can prepare for it. But if you develop a device and then at the final stage we say, okay, have you considered this, and you haven't, then you maybe need to change your device, and this is more expensive and more time demanding than consider this early on. Other thing is, sometimes for a technical documentation, we need some evidence that is developed very early on the development cycle. And especially in startups, where a lot of people move around, sometimes that knowledge is lost. And it's very difficult to do this reverse engineering or trying to find out that evidence that was produced by someone that is not in the company for 5 years or whatever. And so yeah, I would say consider the regulatory requirements early, focus on your quality management system. The standard is your friend. It's there to make your device safe and to make your company more efficient and more reliable. So I would say, yeah, focus on that.
Okay, René?
Yes, I talked about that a little bit already, but for me the whole route was a bit atypical, of course, because we started treating people in 2010, and we got permission to do that, but we never thought of creating a company. And actually, I did this with my colleague Mojo Kruid. So remember the name, Mojo Kruid? He is an orthopedic spine surgeon, and together we developed this thing. And I remember very well that we were discussing, okay, what do we do next? And we had patented the finding already. But we said, both of us, we said, you know, we are surgeons and we are not entrepreneurs, we are not business people. So why not get in touch with a bigger company, which was in the United States, and we actually gave them our license to the patent, basically. And in return, they sponsored our research. So for at least 5 years, they were sponsoring our research, and we were not thinking about developing an implant. But then that company was sold, or was bought by another company, bigger company, and they didn't want to continue because they had their own portfolio already, and they thought this was a competitor to their own system. So they shelved it more or less, and then I said to the original company, could we have our license back? And they gave it back to us. And then we said, okay, you know, there's so much demand right now already that we should really go ahead and see how we can create a company and start working on that. And then we get in touch with people that had much more experience in that field, and they really helped us. They're part of the company now too. There's a couple other people involved now from more the business side. So that's how it went for me.
Thanks. I would agree. From my point, you know, I just gave a seminar on evidence-based medicine to medical students, and I think that can be a message to developers in healthcare. You have to go back and learn the basics of study designs to know what you're looking for, what is the best way to answer the question that you have, and the innovation that you're developing, because it will help you to see what you have to do and then do it well so that you get your certification and you put your device on the market. This is very important. We tell students statistics is equally important for a physician as a stethoscope now, and I think this is also true for clinical researchers and innovators, because they have to be ready to really use the best study designs so that their device or product is put on the market. And I think when you have especially software, that's another hurdle, how you make it, you know, how you use it so that you comply to all the regulation. We have the European EU AI Act that puts health AI in health as a higher risk, so it's, you know, it's not forbidden, but it's high-risk medical device or high-risk AI, so you have to have even more hurdles, to jump over even more hurdles in order to satisfy the criteria for putting it on the market. So I think that's something that is important. Do you think, in your opinion, what is that innovators most often delay to make a decision on, and what are the risks of delaying your decisions about important things about your device?
Well, I think that Ines already kind of mentioned regulations, and I would try to emphasize that, especially to the startups today, that it's really important. It changed our perspective completely. We got into it maybe after a year of developing our device. We realized how strict actually the regulations and what we're going to have to go through to get the ISO standards, and how difficult that's going to be, and it changed also we pivoted significantly in our course. So regulations really, every developer should know that and be ready for those.
Mm-hmm. Okay, any other opinion?
Yeah, looking back, I wish we would have started that company like 10 years ago instead of 5 years ago, 4 years ago actually, 2021 we started. So we would have maybe gotten further if we would have done it then. So focus on what you want to achieve, but our focus was treating patients, but then making it available for a larger public and larger populations was one of the aims that we initially did not have, but that has become the focus of what we're doing right now, and I wish we would have started that earlier.
Yeah, thanks. You agree?
I totally agree with my coworkers. Regulations and.
But it's very difficult then to go through them because they are really written in these legalese that's very difficult to understand.
You don't need to be an expert on everything. There are experts for that. Like we were talking yesterday, find your Sherpas, find the good Sherpas, and they will guide you the way. But you need to know the basics, as you were talking about. And there are training programs, and knowledge is power in every area, and also in this one. So yeah, study, learn a lot, and the more you know, the more you learn, and the less you fail. So that would be it.
I think that's important. And we have heard when we listened to the innovations this morning, we saw that almost all of the teams are a combination of different experts, and also that they look at what patients do. So the next question is about the role of patients and or clinicians that they can play in the early development for you as innovators. Is their feedback important? How do you see them? Do you work with them?
Well, I believe that clinicians and patients, of course, have a major role in the development of these devices. Depending on the characteristics of the individual device, of course, it's maybe more dependent on one or the other side. But for example, for URNA, when you developed the implant, you had to talk to the patients and explain to them, and they had to be trusting and accepting of the idea. And for example, for our surgical drill, it's a little bit different. It's more aiming at the clinicians. And I always say that the clinician is the one who has to have the idea, the innovative idea, and then we need a full team of engineers to perfect it, and all the other components in the team to make it work.
So we always give the patient the choice between the most used implant, which is the magnetic rod. That's probably the most advanced that is on the market, with a lot of drawbacks. Many complications have been described. So we have a big portfolio that we discuss with the patient, and then they come back for questions, and they see a nurse practitioner to go over other aspects of the treatment. So they always have a choice. But based on the information and based on our own published results, basically everyone chooses for this implant. So, of course, interaction with your patient is always very important. That's part of why we do what we do. The other thing is that we have studies where we look at quality of life. So we describe the quality of life before the procedure, right after the procedure, and 1 and 2 years after the procedure. So I think that type of information is essential for further developing any new implant. And like I said, our way to start this was very much patient-centered. It was not implant development-centered, and the patient has always been, and I think it should always be, very much at the center of all the questions that we had and all the solutions that we try to find.
Yeah, thanks. If I can say, for example, from the drug discovery, nowadays it has almost become a standard when you're doing a randomized control trial with a drug that you also do a qualitative study that is combined with the randomized control trials to hear about patient experience, because you can have a great product, but if it doesn't work in real life, if patients are not going to use it because there is something that is not, making them want to use that can ruin all the work that you have done so far. So it's really important to have it. And nowadays, for example, research team for clinical trials have a patient not as a participant, but as a research member of the research team, to guide what you said, the patient-oriented outcomes, to study, to see the outcomes that are important for the patient and not for something that you would like to see as an innovator or a researcher. So I think that's very important. Or even in journals, some journals have patients as reviewers or editors to also review the new evidence through the eyes of the final users.
Yeah, I just wanted to react to your randomized controlled trials, because they're not always easy to execute, and especially in surgical implants, that is very difficult, because you lose a lot of patients that have a preference, and only it's also always a select portion of the total population that is willing to participate in randomized controlled trials. So you need to look for other types of evidence as well. But basically, I totally agree with what you said.
Yeah, so I don't know if anybody wants to comment on this.
No, I would totally agree. In the medical device development, you need to have patients and healthcare
Clinicians,
professionals.
depending on who the target group is, yeah.
Yes, because they are the ones that know the needs. They are the ones that know the market. And these are key endpoints for your design. And for sure, it could kill your product if you have a good idea but have no market and no need.
And and that leads us to the next question when we're talking about clinical performance and evidence, and these are the words that are spelled out and used a lot in the medical device regulation and regulation of in vitro diagnostic medical devices. And that's for an innovator, I think that's the most resource intensive part of your research. You have a great idea, but now you have to test it, you have to provide evidence that it works, and you have to convince the notified bodies or the regulators that it works. So especially to René and to Arsene, so what are the practical ways that a small or a mid-sized company can optimize this evidence generation without compromising quality? You said that clinical trials cannot always be done. So how do you approach this problem?
Well, I would stress that in vitro testing is always necessary, and if you do this process also in an innovative way, to be resourceful, to see what is already out there, what universities or hospitals have, use the equipment you have, be creative with that. For testing, we used the synthetic bones that are, the density are like our bones, and we extensively tested on that. And these were not even something we had to buy. They were discarded from big companies when they, for example, do robotic knee implants, they throw away that as garbage. And actually what we test is not at all in the same part of what they used it for, and it's what is waste for them is something that was beneficial for us. So we had dozens of these ways of bypassing big expenses, and I think that was creative in a way, bootstrapping in the beginning of a startup.
Yeah, we have our system in somewhere between 150 and 200 patients already at this moment, and they're all followed very accurately in prospective databases, and they have been reported on.
So that's a registry, so you're working with the registry, so it's a real-world evidence.
Real-world evidence, absolutely. But that is evidence that was only obtained in the Netherlands, basically in my institution in Utrecht, because we did by far the most cases, but we also have 2 trials with the University of Rotterdam and Amsterdam. So that's how you gather your evidence, and we are a member of an international spine study group, which has a database also, and we will include all our data as soon as we start operating outside the Netherlands. We will include all the data in that system as well. So I'm hoping that we, by the beginning of next year, will be able to do multi-center studies that include Canada and hopefully sometime during the year also America. And all the people that I've discussed this with, and like I said, there's quite a few people that are ready to start using it. All of them are part of that study group database. So we're all on the same line. These are all professionals that just want, surgeons that want to follow their results very carefully, and are keen to really include all the patients into the databases. I think that's very important. Yeah.
As a regulatory advisor, consultant, what do you advise colleagues that come to you, innovators that come to you with such questions?
I would say be aware. There are lots of requirements other than clinical requirements. You have to spend a lot of time in preclinical. And there are some things that can be overlooked, like cybersecurity and data protection. And yeah, I would say that have a good set of preclinical trial assays before moving to clinical, and that way you'll be safe about the performance of your device.
Yeah, and especially when you talk about AI, it's again, we talk about collaboration with clinicians. You also have to have good data to train your model. And if you don't have good data from reliable source or from some real-world evidence, some registry, then it may not work. You will not get a product that will satisfy all the criteria. That actually brings us back to the project that was mentioned in the beginning, this EU for MedTech. And the three of us are part of it, with many other partners all over Europe. And this project was a kind of a reaction to address the problem in the current regulation of medical devices and in vitro diagnostic medical devices, and that is what kind of evidence is needed, especially for high-risk medical devices. So, now in the regulation you have high-risk medical devices that are implantable devices, and also software as medical devices, very often, especially if it uses AI, is considered a high risk according to the regulation, according to the EU AI Act. And the regulation says you need to provide sufficient evidence and high level of evidence for such devices, but they don't specify what it is. So, and there is really a kind of uncertainty about what is needed, but for all stakeholders, not only for the researchers, but also for notified bodies, for national regulatory bodies, for health technology assessment bodies and groups. So there is really a need to learn more about what evidence is needed, and to make some tools that would help innovators, developers of medical devices, high-risk medical devices, to see how they can best and in the easiest way to the market to satisfy the regulation. Of course, some people think, oh, it's against innovation, but then again, you always have to balance. When you look at benefits and harms. Benefit is to have good innovations on the market, but then we also have to look at the harm. If it's not tested well, if it comes too early, it may cause harm to patients. And we have witnessed such cases over the last decades in Europe, and that's why Europe decided to kind of elevate safety standards for medical devices. Not at the level of drugs, pharmaceuticals, because, as we said, innovation goes a completely different way. But what our project plans is to develop a digital framework for generating and evaluating evidence for high-risk medical devices, for MDs and IVDs, and also to standardize norms and common standards for it, and also to harmonize these recommendations and develop a digital platform. And that digital platform will, hopefully, we have just started. We have looked at evidence and made a kind of a landscape of what the literature says about the levels of evidence for high-risk medical devices. We looked at what literature and science says about common standards. We also looked at what tools are already available. And based on that, we're going to develop a framework for high-risk medical devices, and also a digital platform that may serve as some kind of regulatory communication channel that will have a global regulation screening tool, that will have some training for the users, and also some kind of repository. And we're going to test it later on, and we have a number of use cases, and Arsen is also part of this process, where later on, when we develop the framework and tool, we hope we already have 3 use cases, but we invite you also to contact us and to work with us on testing such our tool. And as you see here, you have here, and you already saw this, there is a QR code for all the developers who are interested in joining us in exploring, the pain points in developing a high-risk medical device, what your opinions and thoughts and suggestions are to develop such a tool that would be of help for you. So please scan the QR code, answer now or later. And now a question, I have said a little bit, now it's for Ines. So what are the unique challenges of demonstrating performance for software, for example, of AI medical devices compared to traditional hardware? Well, and what are we going to perform, to offer with the project?
I think one of the main challenges with AI is ensuring, well, there is a lot of variability in the answers in the clinical environment. It has a lot of impact on on the performance of the device. So that would be one of the points that is a challenge for AI. Also, as I said before, cybersecurity and data protection, but also changeability. And this is something that is being discussed a lot because in the traditional medical devices, we have this well-designed device that it's designed freezed. And then you test, you validate, you send to your notified body, they say, okay, you're done, and you put it in the market. But this is not in line with the life cycle of AI, because people that work with software as medical devices and with software know that changes are happening at a crazy rhythm. And we can't use this approach anymore. So it will be fun to know how the regulatory framework will adapt to this reality to make things a little more flexible, still keeping the security of the devices on the one hand, but on the other, don't be in a way of innovation. Looking forward to it. And in the EU for MedTech, IPN is very investing in this project. We are looking forward to see the final result because we believe it will be a gold mine for manufacturers because there will be so much relevant information there, and especially for startups that are just joining this area and have to deal with all the strange requirements that we discussed before. It will be all there in the platform with guidance, with training. So yeah, we're looking forward to see the final result.
And we do count on you to work with us and to test so that we really make it usable for the whole community of developers. René, over to you.
Yes. Okay, we are a bit further along the way. We have done that journey trying to discover what is necessary, and we're a bit further, which does not mean that we don't need money. If there's anyone out there who thinks, hey, this is interesting. So we're absolutely not there yet. But in our trying to discover what the requirements were, we first got in touch with the FDA, and we are going for 510K approval, which means that for people that don't know it, that there is another device that is in a certain way similar, and we have to show to the FDA, so that's the American regulatory body, we have to show that our device is at least as safe as the other implant. So going through that whole process, we were very happy that the FDA gave us what they call breakthrough designation, which means that they recognize that there's possibilities to improve patient care. So we had sort of a fast track through the FDA.
And you had orphan device in a way, yeah.
Only later we got our orphan device from the European Committee. But I was surprised in the beginning. I thought we had so much evidence already with all the published papers and a couple of PhD theses on this topic. I thought they would be very impressed, but they were not at all, absolutely not at all, because they're not interested in clinical outcomes. They're interested in safety tests. So you have to show that your materials are the same as what other people have used inside the human body. And the outcomes and the fact that we have patients that have the implant already 10 years in their body without any harmful effects did not convince them in any way. We had to do these tests that are very lab-oriented tests, not patient-oriented tests, but very laboratory-oriented tests to prove that the system is safe. Whereas my initial thought was totally different. For CE, it's different, and I was very happy because all the new MDR, medical device regulation criteria, are so much stricter than they were in the past until maybe only a few years ago. But for CE, we got that breakthrough designation. The orphan device designation, which means that there's less than 15,000 patients inside the European Union that need this type of treatment per year, and that makes it easier.
But for the future, for your next device that is going to have regulations applicable to you. And you have to keep in mind that from 2026, so very soon, health technology assessment at the European level and joint health technology assessment will be applicable to medical devices too. So not only for drugs, but also for medical devices. And you have to be prepared for that. For high-risk medical devices, you would have to go to European Medicine Agency. You have to get a scientific consultation which will then influence HTA evaluation. So there will be many hurdles that are even, higher standard for safety than the FDA regulations. So for you, for example, when you look at what you see as the biggest hurdle, is it, funding? Is it expertise? It's regulators? And what would you expect from our project and our framework and tool to help you with?
Yes, I think I would have loved to have this information that you're trying to gather right now at an earlier stage of our development. And I'm very curious, so I just took a picture of the QR code and I'm going to look into that. For now, I think I would hope that we are close to FDA. The problem is that the FDA is shut down because the American government basically is shut down. And I have no idea how long that is going to take. Today we had a phone call with the FDA. I haven't heard the outcome yet to ask them how long they think this would give a delay.
It can be. Last time it was 32 days.
2 days?
32 days.
32 days. During the last shutdown, you mean?
Yeah, during the last shutdown it was
32 days. Well,
yeah,
that's okay-ish, more or less. A bit delay, but not too much. Yeah. For CE, we just recently started that program with the orphan device regulation. So I'm not sure what that is going to mean for us. But our focus has been on FDA because we thought that the European market would be more difficult than American.
Okay, yeah. Arsen, what do you say?
Yeah, I'm completely thrilled about the EU for MedTech project, and of course it's going to definitely help us and other startups like us. I have no doubt that these difficult regulatory pathways, all the check boxes that we had to eliminate at some point because each of them costs tens of thousands of euros, and if we removed different parts of our device or adapted it, then we could bypass the certifications and all those expenses that were possibly not necessary. And if we had EU for MedTech earlier and we had somebody to communicate our questions and our needs in the beginning, it would have been much easier.
Yeah. So I hope we will be here for you to answer this in future. Don't expect yet. We are not there yet. We are building the ground for the framework and the tool, but we will be there soon, and we still already have some answers. We have, for example, a deliverable that talks about recommendations to clinicians about how to approach and what is the best evidence. And now it's not only clinical, you have all kinds of, you can in silico experiments, you have virtual data, digital twins. There are all kinds of different approaches, Bayesian study designs that can help and reduce the need for lots of patients in clinical trials. We have only 7 minutes left, so what I would like at the end to hear from you, like the last piece of advice, if you could give advice to somebody who is starting the medical device development journey today, what would it be? I would say, learn statistics, learn study design. It will help you a lot, and I'm sure that you agree. So let's go this way.
My advice would be try to get a clear picture of your end goal and bits and pieces of the whole puzzle. So network as much as possible, meet people, find out what they do and how that fits into your puzzle, learn regulations, because that will shape.
And I can learn the classification of your device. Yes. I think that if you know where your device fits, then it will be much easier to decide and see what you need to do to get it on the market.
Yes, that's step one.
Yeah. Ines?
I totally agree. I will have to go back to the quality management system. Again, people always look at it as bureaucratic work, and there is some work to it, but it will pay up, and it won't take a lot of time for you to see the difference, and you see that doing a good quality management system brings a lot of advantages to your device and to your company. Yes, learn regulatory, learn well, support all your decisions. Qualification may seem easy, there are just 22 rules, but it's not that easy to apply, and if you get it wrong, it can cost you a lot of money in the future, and even kill your product if you're not lucky enough to overcome these difficulties. So ask people, learn, and support your decisions a lot. And as Arsen was saying, keep it simple. Companies usually want to have the best available product, but that can bring a lot of associated work and a lot of compliance required. So to enter the market, keep your minimum viable product. Enter the market, and then you can iterate and make your device more complex. And that would be the third.
Thanks. And the last device from an experienced innovator.
These were the serious advices that you should really take seriously. I'll give a silly advice, and that is listen carefully to a song by John Lennon. I don't think anyone in the audience knows who John Lennon is, probably, but I certainly do. And the title of the song is "Life is what happens to you while you're busy making other plans." And I mean with that, that you have to be open to what comes along. And for me, that was that one patient that we didn't know how to treat. And now we have a company that is still in the startup phase, but a company with the ambition to change the whole paradigm of scoliosis treatment. Scoliosis treatment is a static treatment where you fix the spine with screws and bolts in a corrected position, so it's better than it was, but it's not, by no means it is anywhere near normal. And with the spring and the dynamic correction that that provides, I'm hoping to be able to provide a much more normal life for patients with scoliosis in general.
Yeah.
So listen to John Lennon.
Thank you. Thank you. This was really very useful. I hope it was useful for you. And my advice, kind of to finish this off, look at the stars. We had E.T. on one of the presentations. Look at the stars, but be aware of the thorns along the way. And it's really per aspera ad astra. And as I said, keep in touch with us. We are really there to help you, and we hope that we can co-create something that is very useful for you, so that we really make Europe a good place for innovators, and then we contribute to better health. Thank you very much, and see you.